I want to welcome you to check out my new product, the IEP Guru Academy. This is a series of very short, and I mean short, videos that help to educate and empower you on key topics in special education advocacy. At the moment, there are 3 series. There's one on inclusion, there's one on advocacy, negotiation, and teamwork strategy, and there's one that is called effective responses to common school team comments, such as your child is doing just fine with the supports they currently have, and we don't have the data to support that. In each series, there are currently 3 videos, and they are sold also as bundles. Here's the deal. I wanted to get to you information that you could consume in the amount of time it took you to drink a cup of coffee. I know you're busy. I know this is stressful. I know that you feel this ginormous imbalance of power and that you kind of don't even know what you're doing. But I also know that it is super overwhelming to go to a day-long training, to go to a place for training, to find the right books, to trust the right people. And so these are really brief videos that I hope you can consume during your everyday life in order to help you on key topics. The IEP Guru videos also have really nice workbooks with them that give you things like lists of questions that you can ask at IEP meetings and different negotiation strategies that you can use when these things arise in order to keep your IEP team collaborative and moving in the right direction. If you like the IEP Guru Academy videos and you like that style, you might want to join our monthly membership. The monthly membership has all of the IEP Guru Academy videos, every single one of them, as well as their workbooks. And then it also has the entire IEP binder. So the binder has tons and tons of communication templates. Again, I know you're busy. And yet I know how important it is to communicate on your IEP teams. And so I have built literal templates for you where you're just filling in the blanks and sending them off to school. It also has guides on all kinds of different topics like ADHD, executive functioning, social emotional learning. I mean, so many different topics within educational practice and advocacy. It's got lots of checklists, like what to do before your IEP meeting, what to do after your IEP meeting, that sort of thing. And then so much more. We actually even do a recipe every month. If you are interested in joining the IEP, the collaborative IEP membership, hop over to the website and look at that. The IEP Guru Academy videos are also on the website. I hope you enjoy these things. I've created them for you. Welcome back to the Collaborative IEP podcast. I'm Ashley Barlow, your host. I have tried that introduction probably 7 times unsuccessfully because even I am getting used to our new name. I couldn't figure out where the Ashley Barlow part came in, and I finally got it right. So we're just rolling with it. Okay, today we're talking about something that I love to talk about and I love to embrace. And it's something that very few other people love to talk about, and it's conflict. But we're not talking about destructive, negative conflict. And I want to be really, really clear. I really, really don't like destructive, negative conflict. And I to convince you how much I don't like it, I'm going to tell you I have been the president of 2 boards of charitable organizations that have had decent sized budgets and large boards and large populations. And both of them had unhealthy, destructive conflict. And in both cases, I decided that it wasn't worth it and I left. I quit as president. Um, it's like one of those things where you don't want to see the sausage made. So I do not like destructive conflict. I don't have time for that in my life. So please don't shoot the messenger here. I'm not talking about that when I'm talking about conflict. I'm talking about healthy debate. I'm talking about healthy ideological conflict. Now, I intentionally titled this episode without the word conflict in it because I didn't want to turn you away. And I realized in the first 2 minutes I've talked about conflict. That is because I can't avoid it. I think that conflict, when it is healthy and ideological and productive, it is a necessity on an IEP team. So I want to tell you a story. A couple nights ago, I was talking to a friend, and my friend was saying, that for the last however many years, she has been asking her IEP team for A, B, and C, and they were super reasonable things for her child. And I said, "Well, what do you think are the roadblocks to getting A, B, and C?" And she's like, "That's just it. I can't figure out who doesn't want it." And so we were having this discussion. I said, "So what I like to do in IEP teams is I like to figure out between the administration, the principals, the related service staff, and the parents, and any other like groups of people. I like to figure out who is not jiving with whom and why. And then I like to try to resolve that. And the way that you resolve that is with good, healthy conversation. And so, like, that's the advocacy piece, that's the leadership teamwork piece of um, special education advocacy that I think is super hard for parents. And frankly, it's super hard to do in the meeting. And so I gave her this example of, now this is an example within a hypothetical, an example within an example. This is how we do this here. I gave her this example of something that comes up a lot in behavior cases where somebody, whether it is, the person that heads up the response team if a restraint is needed, or it is an administrator, or it's the special ed director, or it's the person that would expel you if you went to hearing for expulsion. At some point, there's usually somebody that comes in and pipes up and is like, hang on a second, you guys are talking about all these proactive behavior strategies, and that's all fine and good, but you have to understand that my job here is to keep this child safe and more, not more importantly, but they kind of act like it's more important to keep the school safe. At the end of the day, I have to keep the school safe, and this child is exhibiting behaviors that are not safe. And you have to understand school safety, and they go on and on and on. And if you have a child with problematic behaviors, you totally get it. A lot of times, this person is also comes across as angry when they say that. They have, like, a quivering voice, and they're like, "You're talking about giving them a cookie, and I'm talking about giving them a timeout." Um, and so, like, I usually write in my notes, "We need to disarm the special ed director. We need to disarm the whomever," because this person is taking this personally, right? But then when I was explaining to my friend who had asked for A, B, and C and was having a hard time getting it, was what I love to do is I love to respond to that person, and while I'm responding to them, kind of starting the disarming, starting the collaborative spirit, um, and giving it back to them in whatever sense seems right in that regard, right? Whether it's mirroring, whether it's setting a strong boundary, like the parents are not going to agree to blah, 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 but maybe we could talk about whatever strategy I'm using. I like to give it back to that person that appears angry. And not only do I like to watch their reaction to see if I am starting to disarm them and to get them to a more collaborative space, but I also like to look at the other people because remember how I talked about the groups of people? So we've got the admin side, then we've got, and by the way, admin side could be like office, like, board office admin, depending on how big your district is. It can be like the board of education and then the middle school director and then the special ed director for middle schools and then the assistant special ed director for middle schools and then the building um IEP chair. I mean, you can have layers and layers of management and middle management and IEPs. So administration and the layers of administration. And then another team is obviously the parents and another team is the teachers, and sometimes there's even a disconnect between gen ed and special ed. And then there is another kind of subset of the therapists. And it also matters if the therapists, the related service people, are on contract with the district or if they are employed by the district because, how and sometimes that means that they can advocate more, sometimes it means they can advocate less in either direction, or they feel more comfortable, right? So what I love to do is I love to look at those people because a lot of times, and here's the kicker here, here's what I want for you to understand, and it was an epiphany for my friend, is because a lot of times for those people, when let's just say the negative Nancy administrator who's like, you have to understand, I have to keep everybody safe. When they say that, other people at the table are saying, we think we can support this child behaviorally. And so the administrator says, "But what about everybody else?" And the people that are willing to support the kid, the teachers, the OT, whoever it is, are like, "Do you not have confidence in me?" And so now we've got this situation where an administrator and a teacher or like hands-on person that has face-to-face time with the kid have this, like, unspoken, "Wait a minute, you don't have confidence in me" thing, and that's really hard, and guess who that doesn't center on? The kid. The student is not at the center of that. That's now this weird dynamic between employer and employee, team leader and team boots on the ground worker. And that's a really important dynamic to notice, first of all. And that's hard to notice if you're not a super skilled, experienced negotiator like I am. Um, and it's also hard um, to work around, right? But it's possible to work around it. And so one of my favorite things is to notice that and then to kind of dive into where that conflict is. Um, by making things student-centered. Like, hang on a second, negative Nancy administrator. Let's see if we can make this a more collaborative spirit by doing blah, blah, and blah. Um, and you focus on the kid in order to, remove that feeling for the boots on the ground teacher or therapist. Now, when you do that, you kinda have to keep in mind that you're also now advocating for the team so that the team understands that you have confidence in them and that you are on their side, right? Because you might have come into the meeting feeling like, I don't agree with anything the school's doing. But once you realize that the school feels undervalued by the administration, then you've kinda like start this relationship building by like, "Hey, I like your behavior plan. Can we tweak it a little bit in these ways that I think are more appropriate?" And so you're constantly looking for these dynamics. That's kind of the idea. Um, and then once you find the dynamics, then what you're doing is you're looking to have healthy debate, which is the topic of this episode. So, what healthy debate involves is, um, you know, it is having these ideological conversations, answering a bunch of questions, and ultimately getting to the why behind whatever the issue is. So, it might be an inclusion thing, might be a behavior thing. Um, in the last 2 years, I have had more cases that involve problematic behaviors than I've ever had. And I've had a lot of situations where somebody doesn't think that a child can be properly supported at a school, and a lot of other people do think the child can be supported at the school. And we have to work around how to get more support so that the child can be properly supported at the school. Because in my case, most of the parents have felt that way. Um, and also hit that dynamic of, yes, we also acknowledge that safety is so, so, so very important. And that's a value that we have to say. We have to acknowledge that value and that interest and that objective need, um, especially in today's climate at schools. And so, doing that is tricky. You do feel like you're walking a tightrope, and there's no way to say that any different way. But I truly believe that if you do not embrace healthy, ideological, productive conflict, you are not going to get there. And so I want to kind of talk about that a little bit in this episode. Now, you know, kind of the underlying theme here is that conflict can be good. And so, I literally thought that it would be fun to together type in, "Can you give me real life examples of when conflict is good?" into ChatGPT and to see what it has to say. I have used this as a strategy in IEP meeting, so I'm actually modeling a strategy for you. Um, I have had things that just seem insurmountable that I think are super easy, and so I this is not when I go to meetings. This is when I'm consulting behind the scenes. Like, a lot of people hire me just to, like, walk them through one issue. And I'll say, "You know what you should do is you should type into ChatGPT, um, what are some my child struggles with auditory processing, and like you type in the issue, what are some supports that my school could implement to support their auditory processing at school, and it'll spit it out. And then you go in and you're like, I mean, I am not an expert, but I just chat GPT'd this, and this is what it recommended. I did a little further research. I actually also consulted with an advocate. The advocate weighed in a little bit more, and here's what we came up with. The concept there is this is not hard. ChatGPT can do it. And so let's see what happens if we say into ChatGPT, I'm literally doing it on my other screen over here. What are some real life examples of how conflict can be good? Um, and I'm gonna say, "and productive." Okay? And we're gonna see what it says. I'm actually really excited. We've never done this on a podcast, and I might be working myself out of a job because now I'm telling you, you can use ChatGPT instead of all my guides. But know that my guides are based in years and years of experience, right? So one idea that it comes up with, and I love this one, is diverse perspectives leading to innovation. And really, I think this is like the key in special education advocacy. So so far, just with the title, I'm liking what ChatGPT says. It says in a product development meeting, okay, so I'm in Cincinnati. We have Procter and Gamble here. P&G develops all kinds of new products, but let's say that they were developing Pampers diapers back in the 70s or whenever that happened. So P&G execs are meeting in a product development meeting to talk about how to make Pampers. And it says engineers wanted to prioritize functionality. Like, is it going to wick the moisture away from the baby's body? While marketing was pushing for aesthetic appeal, but the diapers have to look nice. They have to look better than cloth diapers, which look so organic and beautiful. Um, so this conflict led to a compromise where the team created a product that was both highly functional and visually appealing, resulting in a bestseller, which is Pampers. Right. So we balanced both interests and we're like, well, we can make a functional product that's nice. So, what's a special ed example off the cuff, right? So, diverse perspectives lead to innovation, something new. Um, I'm thinking about PDA, pathological demand avoidance. That's kind of a new, innovative concept in supporting students with a profile that suggests that they have a lot of trouble. Like, they get almost like a visceral reaction when a demand is placed. And if you don't know about PDA, you should go over and follow Dr. Taylor Day, who's been a guest on the podcast and is a good friend of the collaborative IEP. Um, so, what if, a teacher is like, I don't know, like I just tell them what to do and they every single time they cuss at me or they tell me a lie or they run out of the classroom. And the behaviorist is like, well, I really think that we need to look at this PDA profile and we need to give the child more autonomy, more choice, more independence, more PDA friendly approaches. So maybe these two ideas of, um, you know, we need more demand and we need more autonomy can kind of come together to support something where the student still has demand, but we are delivering the demand in a more PDA friendly approach so that the behaviorist can say, well, no, we're not saying that you don't have to do stuff. We're just saying that we are going to deliver the message that there is work to be done, or there is a transition to be had, or there is a greeting to be given in a different manner so that the child doesn't have this immediate response, right? So innovative because PDA friendly supports are new. They're innovative. Like, I don't know, we haven't ever tried this. Let's try it with this child. Um, Another example, let's see. It gives me things down in different categories. So one is sports teams, and most of us can relate to sports teams fairly well. So let's see what this one says. It says leadership dynamics. Two players on a sports team argued about the game strategy. Their conflict prompted the team to analyze past game footage together, resulting in a new strategy that leveraged both players' strengths to a winning season. Yeah. So like if it's between, um oh, I'm gonna give you a swimming example because that's something that I'm kind of ingrained in right now. So, like, maybe it's relay order, right? Like, when I was a swim coach, you put your fastest kid in the in the 4th position on a relay. Now it seems like you do your fastest kids, and I might be telling you a little strategy that my team does, I don't know. But it seems like the idea is put them 1st and 2nd in the relay order so that you get, like, a nice lead. Um so, but maybe, you got an old school coach that's like, nope, we should do 1st and 4th position. Well, then you have a nice conversation, and maybe that conversation looks to the other team and says, well, what do they traditionally do? And then you also look to personality, which is super important in something like relay. Like on our team, we have this kid who he swims like 18 seconds faster in a relay than he does in his individual events. That would be incredible. But it's he's remarkably fast on relays. And so you're like, you know what, that kid really performs under pressure, and we're gonna put him in the 4th spot, even though his relay time is maybe the 3rd fastest or something, right? But you don't switch things up unless somebody has the courage to say, um, "I don't agree with that. Hey, can we look at it from a different perspective?" Okay, so enough from ChatGPT. That's somewhat helpful. What I was hoping ChatGPT would say is that almost everything that we're attracted to has conflict. And the example that I usually give when I'm talking to my clients who are, if they're like super conflict avoidant, is that they would not like to watch a movie without conflict. Now, I personally get super uncomfortable. I don't really like TV, but I do like rom-coms. And I hate the part in the middle where, like, if it's a Hallmark holiday movie and the girl gets snowed in into the town. She's there to write an article about the little inn, and then she falls in love with the innkeeper. And it turns out that the innkeeper finds out that the article was supposed to be really negative, and now they've fallen in love, and she's keeping the secret. And he gets really mad, and she's like, "No, but I really did fall in love with you. It wasn't going to be an expose. I wasn't going to publish it." I hate that part. But the reason I hate it is because 'cause I'm a fixer, and I'm like, "Oh, come on, you guys are gonna get over this, like, just have the conversation and move on." And the conversation itself is always the resolution. So my point here is that the resolution is the conversation. All good movies have conflict, and the resolution is when they finally just talk about it. I have very this is probably a hot take, but that movie and book, I loved the book, It Ends With Us, but I felt as though if the 2 of them had talked about his pattern of abuse, that, they and whether it actually was abuse, because I think that's a big question in the book, and it didn't seem any better in the movie. I still thought it was a question of whether or not it was actually abuse in most cases. Um I really was like, well, I wonder if they had talked about this and they had implemented a plan if they couldn't have worked through it. But of course, that's a fictitious thing, right? But like the talking through it is really kind of the thing. So while conflict is very difficult, I really just mean that we're walking through things and we're kind of like working on things together. So conflict on IEP teams is kind of the next topic there, right? So, what I'm saying is that when a parent is advocating for something, when a parent is willing to negotiate on something or compromise on something, we have to first address the elephant in the room. Like, I don't agree with something, or I think we need to tweak something in some way. Um, and also, if we have that negative conflict, we have to harness that and turn that into positive ideological conflict. So, as I said, I have had in the last couple of years a lot of cases that have involved behavior. One of the reasons is because Kentucky changed one of its regulations about super dangerous behavior, and it is making some school districts feel like they have to recommend kids for expulsion. And so I've had a lot of things that are like creeping up to expulsion or even hearings regarding expulsion. I haven't had a ton of hearings, but a lot of conversations that have led up to hearings. And in all of these cases, we are asking for innovative ideas. We are asking to consider behavior differently. We are asking to consider a different ramping up of supports, to consider different evaluations. And what has been very, very rewarding in these extremely difficult cases is when you are able to sit through a discussion where tensions are high, where um, opinions differ significantly, where pressures are big. I mean, some districts even feel like the State Department of Ed is saying, thou shalt expel with very few exceptions. Um, and with all of these different pressures, when people can really sit and muddle through a conversation with immense respect and patience and confidence and optimism, it's so super rewarding. And what I want to challenge you with is, wouldn't it be rewarding if that was about your child? Wouldn't it be wonderful if you sat through all of that conflict and you navigated it in a way where the conflict did not become destructive and adversarial, and ego did not get in the way, and temper and emotions did not get in the way, but you were able to walk to the other side and get that Orton Gillingham reading instruction, get that IEP, get those behavior supports, avoid expulsion, avoid the suspension, um, get the trauma informed care, whatever it is that you've been looking for. So, I feel obviously very, very passionately about this. And the next few podcast episodes, we're going to be talking about issues like this where I have a quick solution to you. So, you know that yesterday we dropped our brand new product, which is called the IEP Guru Academy. And these are short little videos. So, I have a short little video for you that is called From Tension to Teamwork. And then the byline is harnessing conflict for IEP success. And so in this, I'm giving you a skill set to take that destructive adversarial conflict and to turn it into something productive so that you can be on the other side of it and you can feel that incredible relief, but also confidence that the IEP team has worked together to support your child. Um, so what we talk about in that, and that's part of our series, by the way, on advocacy, negotiation, and teamwork. And so what we talk about is kind of the emotions that we have to deal with and emotions that we have to acknowledge that other people are coping with during these conflicts. We talk about where conflict comes from, kind of who invited the conflict. We talk about simple changes, which all kind of lie in communication. There's um, the teaser that I'll give you. We talk about reasons why conflict might turn adversarial, because I think it's really important to acknowledge those reasons. Like I did with one example is when different people approach things with different perspectives. And then we go through all of these reasons why conflict can be good. Like, for example, did you know that conflict increases emotional intelligence? There's like a lot of really good research that indicates that when there's conflict and when you learn how to manage it and to respond calmly, that the EQ of the entire group increases. And think about things that you've experienced with your kids, right? Like you approach something really, really hard. It totally makes sense that your EQ, your circle within your family is better. Um, True leaders arise. You're more prone to compromise and to collaboration and that kind of thing with those people in the future. So the emotional intelligence thing I think is interesting. And we're modeling that for our kids when we do it at home, which I really like. Of course, I always say I raised attorneys. So my kids are always like, why? And I'm like, "Oh, be quiet." Because I told you why when you were little doesn't mean you have a say when you're a teenager. Um, but then, of course, at the end, we really talk about some strategies to help you to get around this conflict, like mirroring. If you watch, Shrinking, there was an episode on mirroring. So we talk about mirroring, which actually they did pretty well in Shrinking in my idea. Um and so I give you lots of strategies to walk yourself around these kinds of situations. So if you're interested in downloading From Tension to Teamwork, this episode is airing the Tuesday of Thanksgiving week in 2024. And during our launch, um, these guys okay, so this episode is airing on November 26th, 2024, and at the moment, that video with a pretty hefty workbook is available for $4 online, and it's part of a series that's available 3 videos for $7 during our Black Friday sale of 2024. Um, so if you're interested in learning more about turning that tension into teamwork, check out that video series. That was a really long pitch. I will probably make them much shorter and future, podcast episodes because my podcast is not here as a sales pitch. But, as you know, these IEP Guru Academy videos are here to give you real tools to some of these concepts that we talk about on the podcast that I know you're experiencing, that you've talked to me about time and time again, that my clients are experiencing, but to give you kinda just the facts, ma'am, because I know that my bigger trainings, like the lab, are just intimidating and long, and that you can't prioritize your time and your money to access stuff like that. So, I'm hoping to give you quick solutions to life's problems, and then additional resources if you still need more. All right. I will see you next week. Same time, same place. Have a great week, and happy Thanksgiving.